The family of the student killed at Antioch High School is so angry tonight. This is after learning multiple red flags about her shooter were missed.
And as WSMV4 investigator Courtney Allen learned, the family says they didn't know anything about the shooter's criminal record until seeing our report about it on Friday.
Jocelyn Escalante's parents tell me they think their daughter would still be alive if her shooter had been held more accountable for his previous crimes. This photo was taken at Jocelyn Escalante's birthday party. Her life was cut short at 16 years old when she was shot and killed by a fellow student at Antioch High School. And WSMV4 Investigates uncovered there were multiple warning signs about that student prior to the shooting.
¿Por qué no lo hicieron? ¿Por qué no lo encerraron? ¿Por qué no lo expulsaron de la escuela?
We sat down with Jocelyn's parents, who say their family moved to Nashville from Guatemala in 2019.
¿Por qué no hicieron eso? Sino que esperaron.
Her mom told us, I am really angry with the authorities and also with the school because if they did something, my daughter would be here with me. Juvenile criminal records we obtained last week show less than 3 months before Jocelyn was killed, the student who shot her was arrested and charged for bringing a box cutter to their school and threatening to cut another student.
A que nos vinieran a desgraciar nuestra vida porque realmente.
Her mom wants to know why they didn't kick him out then, so we asked Metro Schools the same question. A district spokesperson told us federal law prohibits them from disclosing information contained in a student's education records without written parental consent.
Como usted se da cuenta, esa historia lo sacan hasta ahora.
The family says they haven't heard from the district or school since the shooting, only learning of the shooter's background through our reporting. And despite his crimes, including 2 2023 felony charges for aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor, the student was never incarcerated. Juvenile court told us today their approach is guided by Tennessee law and grounded in careful balance of public safety, accountability, and individualized rehabilitation. Instead of jail time, the student received community-based services, mental health treatments, and was released to his parents, who were aware of his troubles. In fact, the morning of the school shooting, he and his mother both signed probation paperwork in which he promised not to have a gun or ammunition. Hours later, he opened fire in the cafeteria of Antioch High. Her dad says, I think everything starts at home. At Jocelyn's home, her parents go to her room often, still full of pictures, stuffed animals, and her soccer cleats. She would have been 17 now, one step closer to going to college and achieving her dream of becoming a doctor. Courtney Allen, WSMV4.